With Warcraft Rumble launching this weekend at BlizzCon, one of the hottest topics and things that players have questions about is going to be which leaders are the best as a beginner for progression in the early stages of PvE and PvP content. And I did a video yesterday because I wanted to get one out as soon as possible for those that were downloading the game on kind of the first day that it was starting to become available. But I also wanted to put a little bit more effort into really laying out every single leader in a chart and then walking you through my thoughts on each leader and kind of ranking them from the perspective of a beginner who wants something generally viable and easy to play in PvE and PvP. And we will get this chart and full representation of an article around it on the hellhades.com HH Gaming website, where we're going to be covering Warcraft Rumble. As soon as it's available, I will link it to you here on the channel as a community post or something. But just to walk you through this, we'll start right at the top. At number 1, I've got Tyrion Fordring, and the reason being is he is just super consistent and intuitive for beginners. Easy to play, allows you to heal things and keep them alive and build up big pushes and kind of keep things on the map longer than you can with anything else without having to bring something like a shaman to be a healer as part of your deck. So what he's going to do is you drop him as kind of a frontline melee tank, and then he will be able to fight and also be a support that's healing other units. Can really help you kind of win an engagement and then heal up fully on the way to the next engagement, and then you're already ready to drop another push back at home, and you can get 2 big pushes going at once. Really viable in both PvE and PvP while being easy to understand and play for beginners. And obviously, as we get into like the end game top tiers of PvP and like the uber meta type stuff in the pro scene or something, some of this stuff is probably going to change, but I'm ranking these from the perspective of how easy they will be and viable they will be for beginners when they're starting to play. Then the next one is Baron Rivendare, and when you start ranking up in PvP, Baron is probably going to be the most popular one that you go against. It's just so handy that you've just got everything here with Baron. You've got the reasonable cost of 4, the fast movement, the ability to constantly passively spawn skeletons on the map, which is going to give you some of that map control. It's harder for your opponent to send out miners. You'll have like random skeletons, pick them up, and it just kind of gives you a presence everywhere, and then you can do synergies around those skeletons that will also help out on the battlefield. So Baron going to be a really fun one, really popular, and great map control with him while he has the movement speed to go along with it. And I've got Grommash at number 3 because I really like passively gaining Bloodlust. Bloodlust is a trait in the game that will increase a mini's movement speed and attack speed, which is incredible. Allows you to close the gap faster with melee units and allows your ranged units to have higher attack speed, which in my opinion is even better than getting a damage buff, because when you get a damage buff, you kill something and you get overkill damage that you're wasting that you didn't need, but attack speed just allows you to play faster. It's not buffing your damage, so you're not wasting as much damage. So I really, really love Bloodlust, and Grommash just kind of passively gives it to the allies around him every now and then. He'll spawn in, give Bloodlust to allies, and then also continue to cast that as you're engaging in other battles. So I really like his ability to give you the opportunity to trade efficiently because you're moving faster and you're also attacking faster. Then at number 4, I went with Hogger. So the way you're going to want to play with Hogger is a little bit of a cheap deck. You're going to want a lot of cards that cost like 1, 2, and 3. So you can cycle through and be able to drop your Hogger as often as possible, because Hogger is going to scale to have higher stats the more that you play him. So once you've played Hogger 2, 3, 4 times, he starts to really have insanely good stats for a cost of 4, and you'll start to get a lot of efficient trades out of him the more you cycle through. Then number 5, I've got Blood Mage Thalnos. Now, spells aren't super common in Warcraft Rumble, but if you've got a spell or 2 in your deck and you want to play that style, Thalnos is going to scale his level and his stats every time you play one of those spells. And then he also has a talent that gives him the ability to lifesteal, and you want Thalnos to stay alive as long as possible, so you can scale him up every time you drop a blizzard or some spell. You can actually scale him up to be an insanely dangerous DPS on the map. So he's very just generally useful. So if you keep a tank in front of him and protect him effectively, he can really scale up to be a nuisance and a problem. Then we've got Old Merc Guy at number 6, and Old Merc Guy does require a little bit of a specific rotation, because what you want to do is get maxed out on like 9.5 gold and then play your Old Merc Guy and dump as much gold as possible. So the optimal way to do it is kind of like you've got a miner out on the map that's approaching a gold vein, and then you drop Old Merc Guy while you're mining a gold vein or you're grabbing a chest somewhere, because you want to be dumping as much gold as possible for 5 to 10 seconds after you drop Merc Guy, depending on what talent you have. He's got a talent that will raise that to 10 seconds. But what you want to do is spend as much gold as possible after you drop him, because you're going to be getting bonus Murlocs on the map. And if you do this properly, it can be a lot of fun. You can really spam out a bunch of Murlocs all over the map, and it's kind of like a different way compared to Baron, where Baron is going to kind of spam the map slowly, consistently, and passively. The Merc Guy is going to spam the map based on you doing stuff, and it's going to be more burst. Then I've got Rend at number 7. So when I was first playing Warcraft Rumble, I thought Rend was like number 1 or number 2, because he was flying, and then even when he gets killed while he's flying, he's going to drop onto the ground level and become a tank. But the thing is he's not really as tanky as I would like him to be for a cost of 6. If he costs 5, I would probably move him up the board here a little bit, but really expensive there at 6. The nice thing about his cost is that he is going to save you gold on the back end after you play him, because the synergy that he has with his leader ability to make air troops cost 1 less, as long as it doesn't go under 2. So if you're playing things like a Drake or even Whelp Eggs, you can drop them for a very reasonable 2 or 3 cost and save a couple gold on the back end. So again, you do want to have a pretty specific rotation and specific synergies, but if you play it effectively, he definitely can be very strong. And then at number 8, Sneed is an interesting one. So Sneed is going to be all about the economic snowball, allowing you to get a gold income based on taking down towers and acquiring new territory. And as long as you're doing it with siege, which Sneed does constitute as siege, you're going to be getting an additional 2 gold every time you take one of those objectives. So if you're kind of consistently cycling through and taking new towers and all of that, or capturing meeting stones, opening chests with him or another siege unit, you can really start to get an insane gold income. So when you're playing Sneed, you probably want to try to keep yourself around 6 or 7 gold and not let yourself get up to 8 or 9, or else you're going to start wasting gold when these things start proccing their effect and you're snowballing economically. So a lot of variance there with Sneed. If you're like winning a battle, he can go all the way up to like a top 3 leader, but it's hard for him to kind of change the tide, because his mechanic is kind of based on snowballing. So he's almost like a win more kind of leader, instead of one that can just consistently make a comeback or something like that, if that makes sense. So a lot of variance there on Sneed, but he is definitely a fun leader with the economic opportunities. Then at number 9, I've got Cairn Bloodhoof. Now, Cairn is a little bit meh and underwhelming in terms of the bonus that he brings. It's not something super fun, like spawning skeletons all over or getting a bunch of gold based on taking down a tower, because the main trait is just your horde troops have 20% increased health. But what he is going to be is a very sturdy front line for you to build around, and he doesn't cost 6. Sometimes when you get a very high HP front line, it's going to cost you 6 gold, so a little bit cheaper there on Cairn. And you also have the ability to get a talent where he will resurrect. So if you're just looking for a consistent tanky beatdown style with a good front line, Cairn does make sense. So not insanely impactful, but very consistent and easy to understand. Number 10 is Sylvanas Windrunner, who is the new leader that's being released to Warcraft Rumble for Season 1 that you may see popping up as part of like packs or offers in the Warcraft Rumble shop. And the cost of 6 does seem pretty hefty for just a ranged damage dealer. But the nice thing here with Sylvanas is on death, you are going to spawn a Banshee that can possess another unit. So that is very boom or bust. You can kind of waste Sylvanas, not do a ton of damage, you die, the Banshee doesn't really do anything, and boom, you just kind of wasted 6 gold. But if you drop 6 gold and play Sylvanas like behind a tank or something, do a bunch of damage, get a couple kills. Then when Sylvanas does die, maybe you run off and possess something like a Stonehoof, which is worth 4 gold, and then starts diving forward and taking chests and stuff. All of a sudden you got like 10 gold value out of Sylvanas. So you've got a lot of boom or bust variance with Sylvanas. Gonna be a little bit inconsistent, but when played effectively can be extremely impactful. Then Maiev at number 11 is probably going to be viewed as a little bit harsh by a lot of people, but it's not that Maiev is bad. It's just that Maiev is going to be a little bit difficult for beginners to play effectively, because you can't just, it's not like Tyrion where you can just drop your leader every time it cycles through and then just keep it rolling. You kind of have to do a specific setup and cycle through your deck a couple times, because Maiev is going to get a cheaper gold cost every time you play an unbound mini. So you kind of want to be cycling through your deck and spending enough gold to be able to drop 3 or 4 unbound minis and get Maiev's cost down to 2 or 3, and then at that point you kind of like save up, and then you get a bunch of value out of dropping a 2 cost Maiev, because a pretty solid damage dealer that's unbound with stealth. So you can really kind of cycle through a few times, set up the battlefield, and then make a really impactful play for Maiev. I think it's going to be decently strong, but a little bit more difficult and not as intuitive for a new player to Warcraft Rumble. And speaking of that, at number 12, it's going to be an even bigger version of not being intuitive for new players, and that's going to be Charlga Razorflank. So Charlga is definitely the craziest leader in terms of adjusting how the game is played, and somebody being like, whoa, what is going on? Because what Charlga is going to do is make every single mini that's currently in your deck cost the same. So you'll see like every mini available to be played cost 2 gold, and you'll be like, what? Then you'll see every single thing cost 6 gold, and that's going to make it really hard to understand and get into a good groove of what is going on and learn the actual cost of each mini and when you're trading efficiently versus your opponent. If you don't know what everything costs off the top of your head, you're gonna get really confused. Like, am I dropping this when it's good value, or am I paying a price? Am I dropping a meat wagon when it costs 5 elixir? Is that bad? And you're gonna kind of constantly be fighting with yourself when trying to learn the game. So Charlga can actually be really strong. You can really get a lot of gold value out of the map and then root things in place and just completely obliterate. So not necessarily a bad leader by any means. But I put Razorflank at number 12 just because of how crazy it's going to be for new players to understand. So I would probably recommend playing with a few different leaders first, learn all the minis, learn what they cost, learn what they do, then dive into playing Razorflank and see if it's a style you like. But in contrast to that, for these last two, I really just don't think they're very good, unfortunately. I just think other leaders are better options. It doesn't mean you can't get value out of them. It doesn't mean you can't make impactful plays. But for General Drac and then Jaina Proudmoore, they're just not as good as some of the other options that you have. The General Drac is just kind of a big buff to your elemental damage, a little bit niche. It makes you bring that kind of damage and then synergize with it, and the cost of 5. I think General Drac should probably cost 4. And then for Jaina, I mean, she's a solid DPSer, especially for the cheap cost of 3. She can, you know, get the frost effect out there and blink away from damage, keep herself alive, and be kind of annoying on the battlefield. So it's not like these last two are just complete unplayable trash. It's just that some of the other leaders are going to perform more consistently, especially for new players. So that is my current leader rankings for beginners and thoughts on them. At number 1, we've got Tyrion Ford Ring. At number 2, Baron Rivendare. Number 3, Gromash Hellscream. Number 4, Hogger. 5, Blood Mage Thanos. 6, Old Murkai. 7, Rend Blackhand. 8, Sneed. 9, Cairn Bloodhoof. 10, Sylvanas Windrunner. 11, Maiev Shadowsong. 12, Charlga Razorflank. 13, General Drakasoth. And at 14, Jaina Proudmoore. So if you made it this far in the video, it would mean a lot to earn your subscription today, as we have got a lot of Warcraft Rumble daily content headed your way with a lot of fancy infographics and resources like this beginner progression leader rankings tier list. I appreciate all of you. Thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Good luck starting out on Warcraft Rumble, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Peace.